My husband has light hair, so I thought we might have a light-haired child. But his hair was so white after he was born, I asked a nurse if he was albino. She said no. All I had heard about albinism at this time was that people with albinism had white hair, white skin, and pink eyes. Willie didn't have pink eyes, but I know that brown-eyed babies start out with blue eyes that don't change for about 4 months, so I wasn't sure if he would acquire pink eyes later. People told us that Willie looked just like his dad before we knew about his albinism. He weighed 10 pounds and 13 ounces when he was born, so people called him a linebacker, or one of those football terms. When Willie was about 3 months old, his eyes still weren't tracking properly, so we took him to our family doctor, who suggested we take him to the University of Iowa Hospital for an evaluation. There we met Dr. Judish, who had experience with patients with albinism. He explained it well. He said Willie's eyesight would not improve, but his ability to recognize what he was seeing would improve. He told us that glasses would not help the albinism because albinism does not happen in the lens of the eye. It happens behind the lens, like bad quality picture from the film of a camera rather than the lens of a camera. I didn't know what to do for Willie and was scared. The first place I went was the library to look up information. I didn't even know what it was called. I thought it was called albinoism. I found no books on the subject, only little tidbits of information, and an address to NOAA, National Organization for Albinism and Hypopigmentation. I wrote to them and they sent me information about it. My husband and I went through a sort of mourning for what we thought Willie's life was going to be. He talked about how Willie wouldn't see well enough to play sports or drive a car. I worried that people might treat him bad and how he would fit in if he were blind. I remembered movies I had seen about blind people and people with albinism. Blind people were usually portrayed in movies as being helpless, having to have somebody with them every moment to lead them around in their own home. I just kept thinking of the movie A Patch of Blue, where the blind girl is trying to learn how to walk outside by herself. She is struggling hard to cross the road, and when she finally does, a crowd of unknowing people break her stride, and they mow her back across to the other side of the street. Usually people were very kind. Sometimes people treated Willie bad because of the way he looked. One little boy at church said, "He's retarded," which is not true at all. Willie is very smart and scores very well on the ITBS scores, our test of basic skills. He didn't always score well, though. In the beginning, when he had to use the bubble sheets, it took him so long to decipher from one page to the other and keep finding his place on the opposite page that his scores didn't reflect what he could really do. The school made it possible for him to write his answers directly on the test sheets, and since then he has been in the Gifted and Talented program. He uses a little dome-shaped magnifying glass for reading, and he gets his own copy of the overhead transparencies. In band, they enlarge his trumpet music. They've been helpful. He has the best of both worlds educationally, because he mainstreams into the regular classroom during the school year, and when summer comes, he usually attends the summer session of the Iowa Braille and Sight Saving School in Vinton. This gives him a chance to talk with other children like himself. They develop a close bond because they are able to share experiences and talk about things that they have in common. It's good for us too, because just about the time I'm feeling sorry for Willie and feeling sorry for what we go through, the summer session rolls around and I get to see some children who really have it bad. They may have had eyes removed from cancer, they may have no vision at all, or they might be in a wheelchair as well as being blind. It makes me appreciate what I have, and it makes me thankful that things aren't so bad. Willie is pretty much the same as other children with a few exceptions. He doesn't ride a bike because by the time he recognizes that a car is coming toward him, the car is already there. He won't get a driver's license because of his eyesight, so he'll either have a chauffeur or he'll carpool with somebody or live in a large town where he can ride the city bus. He is a very good cook and has a gift for identifying what ingredients are in different recipes. One of his specialties is meatloaf. He can make meatloaf several different ways. He created an easy pie crust recipe that is better than is found in most cookbooks. He enjoys playing on the computer, although his monitor has grease marks on it where his nose touched while he was trying to get close enough to see. His favorite game is Sims. He doesn't play sports. He doesn't see a ball traveling toward him until it is too late. He can't see the next base from where he stands, and often starts running towards where he thinks it is and then has to turn and correct his direction as he gets closer. He would have to use binoculars to watch a football game, and at the movie theater, he can see better in some seats than others. When he watches television, he sits on the floor right in front of the television. When he reads, he has about a 6-inch working distance. He plans on going to college. He pretty much leads a normal life with friends and girlfriends. Personality plays into this as well. How a person's disability interacts with their personality. Some people might feel down about it. Most of the time, he says nothing about his albinism. He enjoys setting people off, and this is reflected in his school grade. He likes to goof off and have fun. He likes to be ready with a comeback line and lots of sarcasm. Even when he was just a baby in a car seat, his personality showed. He couldn't see as far as his older brother sitting next to him, so he'd reach out his slobbery baby hand and touch his brother. His brother would scream, "Stop it!" and yell his name. He'd smile about it because it made him happy that he could upset his big brother. I don't think his eyesight is always the same. At times he can see a tiny piece of lint on the floor, and at other times he can't see somebody standing directly in front of him. I used to be able to hide from him when he was a baby merely by standing still. I think it is a blend of the angle he looks at, the glare or the lighting, whether his eyes are tired, and the movement of the item he is looking at. I have heard the eyesight of a person with albinism is similar to a computer scanner. If you have low dots per inch, you won't see as well as if you have more dots per inch. They have to guess about some of what they see. Like if you were looking at a satellite picture from far away and somebody tells you to find your house in it, it might take a while to identify what you are actually looking at. There is a lot of guilt as a parent. When he was a baby, before I knew he had albinism, he got a sunburn. I only wheeled him 2 blocks in his stroller and back. In that short amount of time, he got a sunburn. People with albinism are more likely to develop skin cancer than the average population. Another time I felt bad was when I took him to the park to play when he was 3 years old. There was some playground equipment that had a drop-off where a child could grab a rope and swing. He couldn't see that far to know there was a rope, and he couldn't even see as far as his feet. So he walked right off the edge and fell about 4 feet. He never did it again, though, because he remembered where the drop-off was. Sometimes, before we would go somewhere, I would draw him a map. Sometimes when we would walk outside, I would say, "Step," if I anticipated there was a step he would not see. I don't do this for him anymore. As a baby, he started walking very late. He couldn't see far enough to know where he was going. We rearranged the furniture into an L-shaped, and he began walking that week. Once he knew exactly where the next furniture was, he traveled the corner bigger and bigger till he was walking. Before he was born, I had never seen a person with albinism. I had several brothers and sisters. They all had children too, and none of them had children with albinism. I had many aunts, uncles, and cousins with children, and none of them had children with albinism. Most types of albinism are from a recessive gene, which means both parents have to have the gene in order to have a child with albinism. Yet since it is a recessive gene, it usually doesn't show up in the person who is a carrier. At the time Willie was born in the United States, about 1 in 100 people were carriers, and 1 in 10,000 had albinism. Most people don't have albinism, so they would have the dominant non-carrier gene. If a person actually has albinism, of course you know he is a carrier. However, a person can look regular, have no known albinism in their family, and have a child with albinism. It can skip many generations because it's a recessive gene. My husband and I are both non-affected carriers, which means we don't have albinism, but we are carriers. Even when 2 carriers meet, there's only a 1 in 4 chance that their child will have albinism.